Welcome to the series Keys to the Company or Things to Know. I'll be giving you a few tidbits about specific companies. Today covering Scheurich Keramik. If you hear some noise in the background, that's the air conditioner because it's too hot to turn it off long enough to do this video. Number one, Scheurich was much better with glazes than they were with shapes. Scheurich did do some fairly good shapes, and they did some good shapes, but most of them are mediocre or kinda bad, or at least not effective. Shapes like the 271, 275, they aren't exceptional shapes, but they are effective shapes. Shapes like 517 that they love to use for floor vases, classic, simple, but they got the proportions right, and that makes all the difference. Makes a lot of difference with other Scheurich shapes because sometimes they didn't get the proportions quite right. So glaze matters more than shape in some cases. Number two, the variety of decorations and glazes is almost beyond belief. There are shapes that are known in over 200 glazes. Now those are often the most common shapes, and in some cases not very good shapes. But there are some good shapes with enough glaze variety you could make an entire collection just from that shape. And some people have been doing so. Market value, you have to take the glaze shape combination into consideration. Just because it is a very common shape does not mean it has a low value. Yes, if it is a bad or common glaze on a common shape, don't pay a lot if you buy it at all. But recognize that some common or even not really successful shapes have some fantastic, hard to find or rare glaze variations. Those are worth more. Now I know people say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's a cop-out. Those are worth more. In some cases because they're better, or simply because in collecting terms, a good rare item is worth more than a common mediocre item. Number three, Scheurich used shape numbers far more than any other company. A lot of the numbers were used twice, some 3 times, some maybe 4 times. In some cases, it's clearly the same shape with variations, such as happened with shape 275. In other cases, the old and new shape have nothing in common except both being made by Scheurich. The number 4, placement of the markings for Scheurich varies. It's quite often the country and numbers are curved around the outer edge. Other times it's centered and straight with the shape number above the size number. Later, like late 70s, Scheurich did include the company name on some pieces, the full Scheurich Keramik name. And then at one point they did use what I call the 3-circle mark. I don't know what it actually represents, but it does look like 3 conjoined circles. A lot of those pieces, when you get into the late 80s or right near and after reunification, they're simply not as good. The glazes became less interesting and some of the quality declined. Don't pay as much. Number 5, Scheurich used a white or buff colored clay. As far as I know, they never used red clay. You will find some pieces where the clay looks reddish, but that's because the glaze bled, stained the clay, makes it look slightly like red clay. Number 6, some of the embossed designs and a few others have line names of their own unrelated to any glaze. That would include Vienna, Keramos, Jura, Coral, and Amsterdam. With Amsterdam, early on there was a collector name, not a company name, Onion. And that's partly my fault. I looked at the shape and it looked like a side view of an onion, and I called it that. Well, it turns out that a tulip bulb looks a lot like an onion bulb. Tulips connected with Amsterdam, and there you have the source of the real name. Well, let's try to stick to the real name. But with Amsterdam, you may see a few pieces where the embossed design does not continue up around the rim of the vase. Those are new, relatively speaking. Somewhere in the 2000s, probably, maybe only 10 years ago. It came up in my Facebook group. I believe one was actually seen with a Made in China sticker indicating that Scheurich licensed these out to China. I don't think they were fraudulent reproductions. I do think they were reissues by Scheurich, but they are newer. They are not as valuable. If you buy them as just a curiosity, not as a true collectible. Number 7, the Scheurich floor vases with animal designs are among the most popular out there, and justifiably so. But there's a lot of variation in the quality of the glaze work. Value on those is going to largely depend on how much the glaze bled or continued to flow and covered the primary design. If you have a good, clear, crisp design with good outlines, that is more valuable than one with more bleeding, less crisp look. It's harder to achieve that clean, controlled look that raises the value. So look closely. Number 8, Scheurich was by far the largest producer during the West German era. And that means a lot of the items are extremely, extremely common. And Scheurich wasn't real big on quality control, so a lot of them are not necessarily well done. They were also very big on selling decorative items, kitsch, things they could make cheaply and sell in large numbers. Those are not as valuable as the better pieces. Do not get it into your head that just because Scheurich is common, means that all the pieces are lower value. Finding Inca and similar lines is a heck of a lot easier than finding even some of the common shapes in the better done, harder to find glazes. Take that into consideration when you're out there shopping. Well, I hope the list helps, gives you something to think about when you're on the hunt, and I hope your hunt is successful. Good luck.